Excellent, excellent. So having the opportunity to be on the panel before the presentation, when there was so much overlap, I was like trying to, find the right words so as not to give away some of the secrets of this talk. But the talk is entitled "The Power of Brand and Mitigating Risk in a Digital Transformation." So what I thought I'd do, level set a little bit, give a little bit a couple of definitions, and make sure we're all on the same page about this thing, right? So the click. All right, excellent. So digital experience, digital. Websites, mobile apps, sentiment data from your social media feeds. The definition that we go with for all of these types of things, digits, if you will, is an interaction that is possible only because of the digital technology. And so the experience is the sum of all of those interactions put together. It's very simple, very simple. The sum of all of those interactions put together. And when you think about a slide like this, and you talk about the evolution, those numbers of interactions are exploding. They are exploding, all right? Hundreds of millions of tweets a day. How many updates are coming in on people's phones in real time? And what happens is you start to think about things like the gentleman from CloudEXPO yesterday, if you saw his talk, he was talking about control, all right? You don't even have control over some of certain aspects of your brand. And if you don't believe me, what was going on when this was trending, right? By the way, in case you haven't downloaded the latest version of their app, it comes with a new drag and drop feature. Why did I just push maybe a little bit the boundary of social etiquette there? Because we want people to understand that you cannot control some of this stuff, all right? And the impact to the bottom line is undeniable. It is undeniable. Take now what we're talking about here in that example and apply it to your website, your application, your benchmarking program. When Jon Stewart is talking about this on the Daily News, or Will Ferrell says, if you want to find out the true colors of a person, give them a slow internet connection, right? This is what we're talking about, right? In this day and age. And what happens is these outages, these disruptions, they all have an impact to all of us. I mean, we did talk a little bit about positive business outcomes. So the business will have their customers, and I mean, that's really what's at the heart of what we're talking about here. And so now how do you deal with this? So the CIO, the no guy, hey, can we, you're a Windows shop, hey, can we bring Macs? No. Can we have wireless networks? No, they're insecure, right? So the CIO's got to kind of bring themselves back to the table, make them be part of the conversation again. But what we're talking about here is the need for transformation based on rising customer expectations and our desire to fulfill them, to make things simpler to the customer. I don't know, we seem to be talking about like cherries on Sundays in the last talk, but it's just from the perspective of the customer, they only see the tip, and we have to deal with everything that's underneath. So at the beginning of the school year, my son, he's in the 5th grade, he had like this little ice cream social, and they had a DJ, and they were playing their songs, and this one catchy song came on, and I don't know if you imagine like a room full of people like this, like the parents are all overlooking like all the kids in the cafeteria, and this song came on, and all of a sudden, everyone whipped out their phone and they started looking up like this. And so if you just imagine everyone in the room doing that, so it was like a phenomenon, really, like just wild animals just going crazy. But I waited until after, and I said, son, I said, what in the hell was that? He goes, what do you mean, Dad? I said, what was this? It looked like you guys were going insane. He goes, we were live streaming to all of our followers. I said, I'm sorry, right? So before this, I had not heard this. He goes, Dad, yeah, look, check it out. Boop, boop. He says, follow me on Instagram. So first, I had to download the app, but and it says, follow me. And so he goes, boop, 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 boop. And then I got the notice on my phone. It says, grapefruit_11. I don't know where they come up with these names, but it's grapefruit_11 has started a live stream. Watch it now, right? So I know when I used to do these types of shows, we used to do video conferences and coast-to-coast meetings. The telecom work, they had to go in to set up the video cameras at the back and stream it out. And they're just pulling out their phones and doing it like in real time, like right there. Which brings me to like a side point. Think about, I got a couple of gray hairs on my head, how old you are, the kids that are growing up now. If you are not thinking about what your kids are going to be using and how they're going to be interacting 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, start thinking about it. Because their expectations are going to be more than what ours are, more than what our parents were, and it's going to get worse and worse. So, now that we've maybe kind of painted a picture of the problem, what do we do? How do we win? First thing, focus on what you control. So I'm going to show you this next slide. The slides we've been looking at so far were done by our very talented marketing department. This slide was done by me. My question is, which one of these two can you reach? And I don't mean the picture of the sun. I mean, the actual sun, if you don't mind humoring me. I hope everyone says, you can reach the lamp, all right? How about this? So which one of these can you reach? Hopefully you say, both of them. Which one of them can you control? Herding cats, anyone? Anyone heard that expression? So kind of start with an inventory, understand what you control, what you can control, what you can reach and alter the state of, all right? People, place, process, well and good. But here we go. We went with culture in the previous talk. Culture, philosophy, maybe a way of thinking about things. But the idea is when you have a goal, course correct and shoot that arrow, the head of the comet, if you will, the tail will fall in line. And here, for example, time to detect, time to engage, time to fix. I like notify, identify, and rectify. But the idea is that it's a philosophy. The implementation of SRE, so site reliability, DevOps, it's going to look a little bit different, but the principles are what guide us. So focus on what you control and understand the principles, right? The idea being that we'll get to some type of execution. Maybe it will be perfect, maybe it won't be. But anyway, we just want some principles. We just want some ways to start thinking about this. So SRE, site reliability, DevOps, and then we talked about a little bit before, but if you've got a current state with a negative consequence and you're trying to get to an after state with a positive consequence, positive outcome, and here's how we're going to measure it. Here's how we're going to measure the before state and the after state, the metrics. All right, the metrics what is going to be the highway for you to use to know what the before and after looks like. SLA benefits the client by providing an objective grading criteria and protection from poor service. So, you know, maybe when a bunch of 5-year-olds are live streaming, I don't know if you necessarily would have an SLA out there, but imagine if it didn't work. And you have a bunch of 5-year-olds going and tweeting, and maybe, you know, maybe millions of people were affected, and, you know, maybe it's funny to say a bunch of 5-year-olds, but when you're talking hundreds of thousands of people dealing with the type of outage, right? SLAs are important. They're the head of the comet. The tail will fall in line. How to win? How do we get there? Cloud services. Maybe it is starting to get a little cliche. Maybe it's not. But the evolution within the cloud services are important. So first, you know, we talked about software, then we talked about platform, then we talked about infrastructure. Now we're talking about individual functions that spin up, do what they're supposed to do, and then they vanish. So Lambda is probably the more popular one that people are talking about for this type of thing. But fundamentally, it's just an evolution of cloud services. And you cannot have just one. You cannot have just one. The scale, the economies of scale that are being achieved by everyone moving to the cloud, kind of sort of like how the whole healthcare thing was supposed to work, is when you have that much volume centralized divided by the number of people participating in it, you then become able to have multiple providers. So please, multiple providers, right? You know, I mean, hopefully people understand the good we're trying to do here by showing some of these visuals. Dyn, large DNS provider, took down half the internet. That's what those red dots mean. You know, so Catchpoint, again, we're in the digital monitoring business. S3, you know, one of the more recent ones in memory. So when you got a controller in front of S3, maybe you can use Azure. Maybe some traffic routing tools will have been implemented. Right, again, the target and the tooling strategies, they fall into place. Availability, are you up or are you down? So here's an example where there was a configuration error in a large financial institution, and you can see the before and after state very clearly, right? So availability, I mean, it's pretty simple, it's pretty binary. This one's a good one, wireless. So this is actually this metro area, and you can see what we're measuring here, the actual performance of the cell towers. 3G, 4G. Anyone venture to guess what that middle section is? It's the weekend. It was Labor Day weekend, right? Nobody was in the city. Well, you know, nobody was in the city. They're overused. I mean, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I called when AT&T offered the unlimited plan. I mean, I signed up instantly because I kept getting those stupid overages. We know why, right? Live streaming from the cafeteria all day. But you know, there is like a little bit of illusion going on here because these services are overused. Got to have more than one. I'd like to have this slide in here just to reinforce the concept. It's a map, you know, of all the connections between all the continents. They are connected by actual cables. All right, there's no wireless going across the ocean. Well, at least not as far as we're concerned. But again, as expectations of the user continue to rise, to make it simpler for them, action, reaction, it's got to get complex somewhere else. Beyond availability, performance. So here we had a brand measure performance from Tokyo, less than a second. The problem is what? Not everyone buys watches in just Tokyo. So we do talk about, you know, as part of a larger digital program, the idea that Your monitor and your measures of performance and success need to be as distributed as your clouds, all right? Performance, so availability says, are you up or down? Performance is if and only if you are up, how long did you take? And then third parties, very complex, right? Those ads that provide revenue to a lot of companies. So you can see here, when you start to filter out some of those third parties, they have an impact. Again, control. Third-party providers in your control or outside of your control. Maybe, maybe it's done via an SLA. And then lastly is the idea of reliability. So, this went on for several months, but how you're performing over time. X, Y, Z, and then time is the fourth dimension. Reliability is the concept of performing over time, and you want to make sure you're continually measuring over time, 24/7, 365. So if things change, establish a baseline, do some comparative analysis. But again, reliability, the concept of over time. Here's some data showing performance of some cloud providers. S3, I mean, they're very popular, but at what cost, right? At the cost of speed. I think we say speed instead of performance sometimes, but they mean the same thing. And then this guy here, the blank pages. Super fast. Well, that's because they're blank. There's nothing there. So obviously, you can't be that fast. You got to have some type of quality checking on top of it. But I will say this. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Ladies and gentlemen. And that light comes in the form of companies like Catchpoint. Revenue, that's your CFO. Brand protection, that's your CMO. Operational excellence, that's your CIO. Synthetic monitoring, real user monitoring. Everyone at this expo, your exhibitors, your vendors, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. And what I would say is make sure you take full advantage of everything that these expos have to offer for you. Go out, strike up a conversation, and again, have a little bit of fun. Thank you very much for your time today. Everyone, enjoy the rest of the show.